So, you want to own a food truck. You can see it already. The hatch swings up at 11, the propane catches with that soft thump, and the flat top starts ticking as it comes up to heat. Your name is on the side panel in lettering you argued about for 3 weeks. There is a queue by 10 past, mostly people from the offices across the road, and you know 4 of them by name and 2 by order. No landlord, no dining room, no 40-seat headache. When the neighborhood goes quiet, you simply drive somewhere it does not. That is the whole appeal, and it is a good appeal, a restaurant that can run away. That picture is not entirely wrong. Except before any of that, you have to understand that the food truck does not escape rent. It pays rent twice, and one of those payments can take 1/3 of everything you sell. Here is the number most people do not want to hear. The average American food truck turns over about $346,000 a year, according to the 2026 Food Truck Profit Operator Survey, which is a genuinely respectable number for a business that fits in a parking space. Ibis World put the net margin at 6.8% in 2024. Other 2026 industry sources put owner-operated trucks at 7 to 15%. Take the middle and you are looking at somewhere around $20,000 to $30,000 of profit in a year for a person who was standing in that truck for most of it. And to get there, you will spend, according to Mobile Food Math's 2026 breakdown, somewhere between $85,000 and $120,000 if you buy used, and up to $250,000 if you do not. Nobody knows this going in because the fantasy is doing something very specific to your brain. It is not selling you a business. It is selling you an exit from one. Every hour you have spent under fluorescent light imagining the hatch and the propane and the queue has been an hour of not doing arithmetic. And the arithmetic is the only thing standing between a genuinely good few years and a truck listed on Facebook Marketplace next spring, with 11,000 miles on it and a note saying, health reasons. The market, for what it is worth, is real. Ibis World sized the United States food truck industry at $2.8 billion in 2025, with 92,257 businesses operating, a count that grew nearly 17% in a single year. Mordor Intelligence, measuring differently, gets $1.09 billion for the same year and forecasts 6.53% annual growth to 2031. The National Food Truck Association, measuring gross sales rather than value added, says $14 to $20 billion. I am telling you all three because they cannot all be right, and it matters which one you believe. If you divide Ibis World's $2.8 billion by their own count of 92,257 businesses, you get $30,350 per truck, which is nowhere near the $346,000 survey average. One of those numbers is describing a full-time truck, and the other is describing an industry full of people who take the truck out on Saturdays. That is a genuinely large and growing market. But market size tells you almost nothing about whether you personally will make money from it, and in this industry, it does not even tell you who is in it. Here is the one number that decides your entire business, and almost nobody starting out has thought about it. It is called throughput, and it means how many orders you can physically push through one window in 1 hour. Your truck has a fixed service opening, usually 1, sometimes 2. Foxafood's 2026 analysis puts the maximum throughput of a single ordering point at 24 to 40 orders an hour, because the customer needs 30 to 60 seconds to read the menu, another 30 to 60 to order, and 20 to 40 for payment, all before a single thing is cooked. Projection Hub's model works out at roughly 15 customers an hour per cook if the average item takes 4 minutes. So your ceiling is not demand, your ceiling is arithmetic. At 30 orders an hour and a $12.76 average spend, which is the 2026 survey figure, you are earning $382.80 for every hour the hatch is open, and that is at full tilt with a queue. 4 solid hours is $1,531 on your best possible day. When throughput creeps down, something is badly wrong. The same survey found customers expect to wait 7 minutes and actually wait 12. That 5-minute gap is where your business quietly dies, because a long line does not just slow you down, it turns people away before they ever join it. Every extra ingredient on your signature sandwich costs you orders per hour, and orders per hour is the only lever you have. So let us talk about what it costs to get the hatch open at all. Total range for 2026 is $40,000 to $250,000, with most first-time used truck buyers landing at $85,000 to $120,000. What separates the ends is almost entirely one decision: new or used. And the shocking variable, the cost with a range so absurd that nobody budgets for it correctly, is not the truck. It is permission. The United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation's Food Truck Nation study found that food truck operators pay approximately $17,066 in fees to the city government of Boston. In Indianapolis, the equivalent figure is $590. That is the same business, the same truck, the same food, and a difference of roughly 29 times, decided entirely by which side of a municipal boundary you happen to park on. The same study found that starting and running a truck for 1 year involves an average of 45 separate government-mandated procedures across 37 business days and around $28,276 in permits, licenses, and compliance. Boston and San Francisco each required 32 procedures to start. Denver required 10. PBS reported the annual regulatory burden as up to $38,000 in Boston against about $5,000 in Portland. That study is from 2018, so treat the exact figures as directional, but the spread is the point, and the spread has not gone anywhere. Before you price a single griddle, price your city. The truck itself. RestroWorks puts the 2026 average used food truck at $46,800 and the average new fully fitted build at $109,500. Moby Munch's ranges are $40,000 to $80,000 used and $90,000 to $175,000 new. Used looks obvious until you look underneath because you are buying used plumbing, used electrical, a used generator, and used refrigeration, and the truck chef recommends budgeting a further 15 to 25% of the purchase price for immediate repairs. On a $50,000 truck, that is another $7,500 to $12,500 before you serve anybody. Pay the $300 to $500 for a pre-purchase inspection from a commercial kitchen equipment technician, not a car mechanic, because the mechanic will tell you about the brakes and say nothing about the fact that the hood will not pass. Which brings us to the line item that ambushes almost every first-year operator. If you cook anything that produces grease, and you almost certainly will, you need a Type I hood and a UL 300 wet chemical fire suppression system. Pitstop's 2026 pricing puts an installed system at $3,000 to $6,000, with a realistic budget of $4,000 to $5,000 for a truck running a fryer, a flat top, and a 6-burner range. You cannot install it yourself. Every United States jurisdiction requires a certified company. And it does not stop costing money. Recertification runs $200 to $450 a year, and semi-annual maintenance another $100 to $200. Worse, if you buy a used truck whose system is non-compliant, Halver puts the replacement at $5,000 to $10,000. That is a 5-figure surprise attached to a piece of equipment most buyers walk straight past. The rest of the systems package, meaning the generator, the fresh and gray water tanks, the water heater, the 3-compartment sink, the hand sink, and the propane system with its regulators and pressure testing, runs $10,000 to $25,000, according to 2026 builder pricing from Zion Food Trucks. A professional wrap is $2,500 to $5,000. A point-of-sale system is $1,000 to $3,000. None of this is optional, and none of it makes food. Now, the margin. The per-unit economics are the reason this dream survives contact with the internet. Food cost on a well-run truck should sit at 28 to 32% of revenue. Call it 30. That means a $13 sandwich costs you about $3.90 in ingredients and delivers a 70% gross margin. The grocery industry operates on 25 to 30%. A software company would celebrate 80%. On a per-sandwich basis, you are closer to software than you are to the supermarket, and that fact is doing enormous emotional work in every food truck business plan ever written. The problem is that between the 70% gross margin on the sandwich and the 7% net margin on the business sits a cost structure that consumes the difference with real efficiency. Labor goes first. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Occupational Employment and Wage Statistics for May 2025 puts the national mean hourly wage for food preparation workers at $16.96, fast food and counter workers at $15.46, and cooks, all other, at $18.82. 2 people at the food prep mean, working 40 hours across 50 weeks, is $67,840 a year before payroll taxes. On $250,000 of revenue, that is 27.1%. And you have not paid yourself yet. Then the rent you were promised you would not pay. In most United States jurisdictions, you cannot legally prep, store, wash, or park at home. You must be tied to a licensed commissary kitchen, and the signed agreement is what the health department wants to see before it issues your permit at all. Street Legal's 2026 multi-city survey puts recurring commissary access at $300 to $1,500 a month, with secure overnight parking adding another $200 to $500 on top in Texas markets. Some states, notably Texas and parts of Arizona and Florida, now allow exemptions for fully self-contained trucks, and Texas House Bill 208-44 changes the picture there from July 2026. So check your own state rather than the internet's. But for most of you, the position is this. You are paying rent every month on a kitchen you are not allowed to sell anything from. Then insurance at $300 to $700 a month for a full-time operator. Then routine maintenance at $2,000 to $5,000 a year, with major repairs averaging $1,000 to $2,500 an incident and at least one likely annually. Then card processing at roughly 3% of everything. Then fuel, propane, packaging, and the loan. The distance between that 70% and that 7% is your entire life as an owner. Now the failure rate, and here I want to correct something because the internet is confidently wrong about this. You will read on food truck advice sites that around 60% of food trucks fail in the first year. That number appears to have been invented and then copied. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks this properly through its Business Employment Dynamics program. Table 7, which follows every cohort of new establishments year by year. For accommodation and food services, of the establishments that opened in the year to March 2019, 82.6% were still trading 12 months later. So about 17% closed in year 1, not 60%. 5 years on, 57.4% were still open. 6 years on, 52.9%. That is a much less dramatic number and a much more useful one. Roughly 1 in 6 closes in the first year, and a little over 4 in 10 are gone within 5. That is not a scare statistic designed to talk you out of anything. It is an honest description of a business where the odds are genuinely close to a coin flip over 5 years, which is worse than most industries and considerably better than the folklore. And here is the killer, which is that the food truck's central promise, the one that made you want one, is not true. You did not escape the landlord. You acquired a second one, and the second one is far more expensive than the first. A restaurant's rent should be 6% or less of sales, and the Restaurant Resource Group's benchmark holds that total occupancy cost above 10% begins to seriously impair the business. That is the number a restaurant owner lives inside. Now look at what it costs a truck to stand where the people actually are. Bonnaroo's published 2026 food vendor terms state that the percentage of gross sales charged to vendors ranges from 30 to 35% depending on menu complexity, with a $1,000 deposit per booth and power, water, trash, tent rental, and premium space charged on top. Smaller events are gentler, typically a flat fee of $150 to $2,000 or 5 to 10% of sales, but the large ones, the ones with the crowd, take a third. Sit with that. The restaurant owner's rent is capped by convention at 6% and is fixed regardless of how the day goes. Yours can be 5 times that, and it is charged as a percentage of the top line on precisely the days you sell the most. The better the event, the more the landlord takes. And unlike a lease, this landlord can decline your application, admit 3 trucks selling the same thing you sell, or cancel for weather. You have all the exposure of percentage rent and none of the security of a lease. That is the trade. You bought mobility, and mobility means you never own your location, which means you rent it from a different person every single week, at a rate they set on terms you cannot negotiate, forever. So let us run the actual numbers on 2 realistic versions of your food truck. Option 1, the modest version. You buy a used truck at $50,000, spend $10,000 bringing it up to code, another $5,000 on a compliant suppression system, $3,000 on the wrap, $1,500 on the point of sale system, and hold the rest as working capital. Call it $95,000 all in, with $70,000 of that financed. You work a lunch route and weekend events in a mid-cost city, and you do $250,000 in year 2. Food at 30% is $75,000. 2 staff at the Bureau of Labor Statistics mean is $67,840. Commissary at $800 a month is $9,600. Insurance at $500 a month is $6,000. Maintenance $3,500. Card processing at 3% is $7,500. That is $169,440, leaving you $80,560. Now take event fees at a blended 10%, which is $25,000, permits at $5,000, fuel and propane at $6,000, packaging at 4%, which is $10,000, and about $16,000 servicing the loan. That is another $62,000. You are left with $18,560, which is 7.4% net, and which sits almost exactly on IBISWorld's 6.8% figure and inside the 7 to 15% owner-operated band. That is your profit. You were also the second staff member for most of the year, so a good chunk of that $67,840 in wages was your own labor coming back to you under a different name. Run it well, hit 15%, and it is $37,500. Option 2, the premium version. A new custom build at $109,500, a full systems package, a $5,000 wrap, permits in a serious city, and working capital. Call it $175,000. You do $450,000 with a real crew, which puts you in the 6 to 9% band that applies once you have employees, so between $27,000 and $40,500. Now compare. The modest truck returns up to 39% on the capital you put in. The premium truck returns 23%. You spent an extra $80,000 and got a worse return, because the throughput ceiling did not move, the event fee did not move, and you added payroll. This is a business that punishes scale in a single unit. It is a genuinely attractive business on paper and a brutally hard business in practice, and the version of it that works best is the small one where you're standing in it. The food truck business works. It works because people will always want to eat something hot, handed to them by a person in the middle of a day that is otherwise indoors. And because a city block will always have more hungry people in it at noon than it has good places to sit. That habit is older than restaurants, and it is not going anywhere. It does not work the way the fantasy version suggests, which is a restaurant that ran away from its landlord. It works when you have priced your city's permits before you priced your truck. It works when your menu is engineered for orders per hour, not for the photograph. It works when you have found a commissary you can live with and a parking spot you do not have to bid for every weekend. It works when you say no to the festival taking 30%. It works when you have built the catering and the standing corporate pitch that pays whether or not it rains. It works when you understand that the truck is the cheap part. Not bad for an industry that fits in a parking space.